Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ podcast. Today, my guest is Mr. Ryan Douthit of Driving Sports TV. Now, Ryan's been a guest on the show pretty frequently because he's kind of awesome and he does a lot of awesome stuff, okay? Not only does he do car reviews on Driving Sports TV, which you can look up on YouTube, but he just got back from shooting the East African Safari Classic Rally. Is that right?
That is correct. You got the name right. And honestly, even being there for 2 weeks, I still had trouble getting the name straight, but it's important because you got to get that classic in there because
that's right.
It is the classic rally.
Now, for those, I just want to give a little preface to Ryan. Like, I've shot with Ryan for years. Ryan is not afraid of getting dirty. Like, he will do whatever it takes to get the right shot. And it shows if you go to his channel, look at the quality of his work, you will see that. Mm-hmm. But this was interesting because all of a sudden he was just like, yeah, I'm going to Africa for 2 weeks to shoot this thing. And I was like, you gonna do what? And he's like, yep. And then he started posting pictures on the internet, which you'll see if you watch the podcast. Yep. And so first off, Ryan, tell us what this rally is. Tell us how this came about. And then we're going to go into the meat and potatoes of what was it actually like over there.
Sure. So the East African Classic Safari Rally is the organizers really want to bring rally back to what it was back in the 1970s and 80s, where you're not like dealing with these like 800,000 horsepower, whatever monster cars. And the thing that really makes this rally unique is not only is the length, because if you actually add up every single stage rally in the entire United States, like all of the national level events, they're still not as long as this one rally. It is epic in length. It is 4,000 kilometers.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And you had to travel with the, I mean, like, all right, so we're going to get into the whole support vehicle thing soon. I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
But how did it come about?
Well, so I got a call from a guy named Ian, who I've known for years. And he said, by the way, I have an opportunity to drive a Skoda in this rally. Do you have any interest in coming and being our social media guy? And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Yes, I'll do that. Second of all, what do you want me to do? He's like, oh, just take some photos and then you can do whatever else you want while you're there. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like a good plan. I can work with that. So I basically had a month and a half, 2 months notice. I was going to be heading to Africa. And of course, the whole time during COVID, you're always like, this probably won't happen, like everything gets shut down constantly. But the fact was, at least based on available national statistics, the COVID levels were actually lower where I was going than they were in the United States at the time.
Where were you exactly in Africa? Where did you start?
Kenya. Yeah, the whole thing was in Kenya. So I flew into Nairobi and then we went north and then we made our way out to the coast to Mombasa. And that's basically the whole arc. So Kenya is a fairly large company. And for those who don't know, Nairobi is the financial center of African commerce. Yeah. It is like the biggest, like we were driving on by day, again, we'll get back to this, but like by day 7, we're like, we would just love to have a Burger King burger or something. So we looked on the map and the only place in Kenya where all of those things exist, is in Nairobi, and there's like 20 of them of each brand, so Nairobi is a very modern, big, bustling city. The rest of the country,
not so much.
It's a little raw. So we're best known for doing off-road reviews. We take crossovers like in the latest from Toyota, from Hyundai, all those type of things. And we really test the all-wheel drive systems on rugged off-road forest roads, and we're like, oh yeah, this is really rugged and this is tough. For somebody who lives in Kenya, that is going to the supermarket every day. That is it really? The quality of the roads out there. And it seems like the roads are constantly under construction. So apparently, from people who I know who have been doing this rally for like 20 years, they say that basically where the country has come in the last 20 years, it's incredible in terms of like all the main lines are now actually smooth roads. They're paved. You can actually drive on them. Anything beyond that, like once you start getting into a B road, you're looking at I mean, potholes is being nice. I mean, there's barely any cement on most of these roads.
Right.
Sometimes you really do. They just send you off onto a dirt path into the middle of nowhere. It's rough. It's really rugged. And I've always had commenters on my videos say, yeah, that's like my hometown. I mean, that's like the main street of my town. And I'm like, nah, that's
whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. You're being exaggerative. I'm like, no, okay. And actually interesting, I ran into 5 people who watched my show and recognized me in Kenya. And
that's
they didn't
great.
recognize my look. They recognized my voice. So
sure.
they were like, I had somebody come, like, somebody's like, I heard somebody say, like, holy crap, is that Ryan Douthit? I'm like, yeah. Because they heard me talking to somebody else.
Right.
Apparently,
right.
Trademark voice, I guess.
Well, that's good. So when you got over there and you started to do the rally, like you said, you were hired for photos, but did you do video as well?
Yeah, I shot mostly video. In fact, the kit that I brought over, I have a number of different cameras that I use for different specific things. Rally will destroy cameras. It is really brutal. So I didn't want to bring my high-end stuff, mostly because the reason why I was there. I mean, if I was hired by, Hoonigan or Tut Hill or whatever, to shoot some epic documentary, I would have brought appropriate cameras for that. This was kind of a little bit more casual. So I brought a pair of GH5s, which are primarily the GH5 Mark II. It's a Panasonic that's primarily a video camera first and foremost. Also works as a photo camera. And so, of course, once I get there, even though I'm shooting all video, because I'm making a little mini doc for Driving Sports TV that'll be out probably next month, I can't help but also shoot a lot of photos for social, because this everything is so cool and so unique. And so, like, I couldn't even believe I was there. Like, for one afternoon, I was hanging out with zebras. Just hanging out with zebras.
Just like, chilling. That's how I felt when I went to Dubai and I was just driving through the desert, and all of a sudden I had to stop because there were camels in front of me, just random camels. And I was like, oh, that's a thing here. Okay. But let me ask you this, Ryan. You said it's really tough on the equipment. Is it because of the dirt, the dust, the jostle? Like, how is it,
multiple things. First off, the heat, even though it's like 90 degrees, it feels harsher because you're physically closer to the sun. I don't know if there's anything technically or if it's just mentally, but it seems like sunburns happen a lot quicker. Even like, like, oh, I can be 20 minutes out in the sun, I'm not going to burn. You're out there 20 minutes without protection, you're red. You're
cooking.
You're done. Okay. Yeah. And because, we were directly on the equator. And so we were physically closer to the sun. The dust is everywhere. And a lot of it is like a clay. Like my equipment is still, every little nook and cranny still has this red powdery dust in it. It's a really fine dust, and it just gets everywhere. But because we covered all of Kenya, the surfaces were very different. Some were sandy, some were red dust, some were more clay, some were this or that. I mean, it was kind of all over the place. And then also getting into the stages. And then once we were there was like no cover, there was one tree, and the entire village who's watching us, because we were out in like
it was under that tree.
Was under that tree. So you're like, I can't really hang out under the tree. So here I am, baking in the sun, middle of nowhere, and cameras don't particularly like that. Cameras don't like to get overly hot. And so I did have one shut down a couple times, but it wasn't a big deal. It's like, it was usable.
So now, what about support vehicles getting to the different places? Like, because you've got your equipment. I've seen what Ryan travels with, and he's got his kit, and he's super efficient of what he takes and whatnot, but still Africa, desert.
I fit everything into a backpack and then one accessory bag. So I was able to be fairly efficient, which is good because all my bags were lost when I arrived. I didn't have my bags for 48 hours when I first arrived, but I had all my primary cameras with me. So I was able to start shooting immediately. And by the way, this is an 11-hour time difference. So basically take your schedule and flip it on its head and try to work with that. And everybody else who's there has been there for a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah. So you just showed up. You're like,
and I'm just like, tired. What's going on here? So I think I kind of want to give a little bit more background on the rally itself, so people have an idea of what this is. So in addition to the distance, these are all cars that are homologated race cars prior to, I've seen some different numbers, but it's basically 85, 86. So it's they do not allow full-on Group B cars. So like, you're not going to see like an RS 200. And the reason why they do that, and they are going to avoid that. So these are all two-wheel.
And Ryan, explain for those out there that might not know what a Group B car is.
Okay, so Group B was kind of the golden era of
Right. Rally.
WRC, the World Rally Championship. This is when traction control and safety were not really a thing. But
Safety fifth.
Safety fifth, yeah. But the horsepower was ratcheting up. So you're looking at all-wheel drive, so massive grip, 800 horsepower. That's what they said they had. Probably
right.
More. Going through these villages. And that is kind of an important thing that really makes the East African Safari Classic so incredibly unique is these are mostly open roads.
Wow.
Like they do not close the roads because you cannot close 4,000 kilometers of roads. It's just not possible.
So wait, so you would have like pedestrians and traffic and
school kids?
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Motorcycles. Like I could see across a valley, some dude on a motorcycle down the middle of the road as Ken Block is starting to like go sideways around.
Oh my God.
And you're just like, no. But like he sees him and he kind of like putters off to the side and Ken right by. I mean, health and safety would not be okay with this in the US.
Right.
A lot of like the organizers say, and a lot of the people in the villages really, really like this. This is like, this makes their years. It's highly dangerous. But so you can imagine that some of the routes are literally through the middle of villages.
Right.
And you can imagine that a car that's a two-wheel drive that puts out 200-300 horsepower is already going to be pretty fast. Now
that's right.
An 800 horsepower four-wheel drive. You
of course, yeah, it's insanity.
Physics are insanity.
Yeah.
So they do not currently allow all-wheel drive. They currently do not allow Group B. So these cars are right before Group B essentially. So they're all carbureted. Some of the cars, like the Skoda that I was hanging out with, was I think it put out 130 horsepower or something like that. It wasn't a lot, but it was a rear engine, rear wheel drive, ETH block car, which is interesting. And then a lot of Porsches. Actually, let's talk just quickly about the entry list. Tuthill Porsche is they do like race teams and stuff like that in the UK. They basically, that's half the field for this event. A lot of them are what are referred to as gentleman drivers. So people who
paid seat,
have the money, but have the skill and want a challenge. There were a couple where you're like, I'm not so sure that guy should be driving, but for the most part, these guys were actually really good. Like Phil Kaduri was there, definitely a gentleman driver, but he is so good. He is such a good driver. He was like 5th overall. I mean,
and how many cars total participated?
41 is what I have on this list, which I think is the official list. And just to give you an outline of like the people who are on this, like you had Phil Kaduri, who's a gentleman driver. He does Ferraris. He'll do like, like he'll do Goodwood and stuff like that, but he won't do a full series of anything because he's busy. But then we have Patrick Sandell, who is the ex Subaru rally driver. He's currently not doing anything right now. So he's like, oh, I'll go drive a Porsche.
Sure. Of course you will.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
And he was like 2nd overall.
Right.
And then you have Ian Duncan, who's like a local Kenyan, like legend race driver. He's done WRC. He's done like, you name it, he's done it. And he's like one of the top guys. And then you also have like Ken Block, who just wants to, even though Ken Block's a professional driver, this was not part of any series for him. And so
of course.
He didn't bring his car for this. He just rented a Tuthill Porsche and had it modified to his liking, essentially. So that's kind of the overall makeup of the event. And you go from like literally you're in a different hotel every single night as you go around the thing. So it's exhausting. And a lot of these guys, you imagine you imagine in your mind racing a safari rally. Okay. Well, now imagine being in a car with no air conditioning. It's 90 to 100 degrees out.
Yeah, full race suit.
1,000 kilometers. Sometimes you're driving at 10 kilometers an hour because the rocks are so big. You're like almost rock crawling in a Porsche 911. So it can be a little bit exhausting for people. And the wear on some of the less engaged drivers was starting to get to people.
Well, that's an interesting point. What's the attrition rate?
You're allowed to re-enter, but you can't win unless everybody fails, and the attrition rate is massive.
That's what I thought.
There are 2 or 3 rolls on the race. One of them was a very experienced driver. One was the guy who actually invited me out.
Okay.
He rolled one of the Skodas, which is disappointing.
Okay.
But it's because the problem with these roads is that you kind of like, you get used to something and then it changes on a dime. Totally different road character on the next one. And so what you've been doing, you get into this rhythm, and then you do that in the wrong spot, and your rally's done. Not to mention, these are old cars. I mean, these are 70s and 80s, like Datsun 240Z, Triumph TR7, Ford Escort, Renault 4 GTL, a Datsun SSS 1600. That thing was so awesome when it went by. Yeah, lots of Escorts too. And some of the Escorts were actually like some of the faster ones. Like there was an Escort RS 180 that I think ended up with 3rd or 4th overall. It was pretty good. So yeah. So it's kind of like, it's almost like Radwood in the most extreme.
Right. Yeah. So what would your day look like? So you said obviously long hours right now. We've been on shoots where they're 16, 18-hour days, and then you go to the hotel. But what I want people to understand is that if you host a show, it's different than if you're shooting a show or if you're shooting something, because just because the day ends for, say, a host, and say if it's a 12-hour host day, there's another 3 to 4 hours of after production work that has to be done by Ryan, where he downloads footage, where he downloads pictures. This is the stuff that nobody sees. So on average, how many hours of sleep would you get a night?
My day started at 4 a.m. every morning and ended at midnight or 1 a.m. every day. That was it for 12 days straight. I got 2 to 3 hours of sleep pretty much. And that didn't need to happen. The reason why it did is because the organizer refused to give us the GPS tracks for the courses. So ideally, if I'm doing an event, especially one this large and remote, I usually prefer to get the GPS tracks of where the actual courses are. So in advance, I can plan out my movements. So I can be like, here, I can get this stage. I can then access to this part to get this stage. So I can basically jump ahead of the cars. They wouldn't release the maps until 9 o'clock the night before. They said they were going to do it at 6. And usually I would have to call somebody by 9, and then I would get them by 10. And then I would spend the next 2 hours with crappy internet trying to piece together what my next day was going to be like, because I had a driver with a car, and I needed to tell them where I was going, and I needed to be able to get the maximum use out of my day. I did try to rely on some of the locals for information. I'm not sure if they felt they didn't want to give me the right info, but I asked one of the pro shooter local guys, like, where to be the next day, and I asked him for very specific questions, and where we ended up was not what I wanted. So I stopped even discussing anything with the organizers or with them. And it's interesting. You know, it's like, it's a big event. It's their event. I'm a guest to shoot their event. But you would think that, I mean, come on, I'm trying to make the best video possible.
Of course. Yeah.
Difficult for me.
Yeah. But you know, as well as I do, if it's their thing, you, like you said, you are a guest, and you know, so on.
And I had all the local Kenyan guys going like, no, don't make a fuss about it. I'm like, no, I'm making a fuss about it because this is what I do professionally. And I need this information. So I did eventually get the info. We eventually went to, I can say that my driver, so I was provided a car and a driver, a local guy. He was awesome. He kind of knew the area, but like, just like if you were to like do a 4,000 kilometer rally in the States, no one person is going to know
everything. That's right.
But he was great to be able to get us food when we needed it. Specifically making sure that I didn't drink the water, because water you have to be careful with over there. You have to stick to bottled water, but sometimes bottled water is not available, so you have to get boiled water. And it's not like, it's mostly just because my system isn't used to what's in.
So any dietary issues while you were over there with the food or anything like that?
You can't eat the lettuce. Anything that's been washed off with their water, you can't eat. So
what did you just live on granola bars and water for 12 days?
Luckily, the hotels were able to provide like eggs and toast for breakfast, so that's a pretty safe thing. So I had a decent breakfast. Their food is so weird at these, like, so like every place we were at, like in these, they were kind of like resort hotels. Some of them were pretty rough. Like one, the power went out like 10 times.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Like, okay. I think it was the monkeys. There were actually a lot of monkeys like messing with houses and stuff while we were there. But the food, like for breakfast, I always had eggs and toast because that's just a real staple.
Safe.
Whenever I'm traveling, gives me my protein, gives me some grain.
Yeah.
You know, I can get through to 1 or 2 p.m. if I have 2 eggs.
Right.
It's just, it's safe on my body. And
Right.
when you travel, if you travel a lot, and I know you know this, but for people, you come up with, if you travel a lot, you come up with,
you have your kit.
This is what my body will deal with.
That's right.
Where I am, and will also get me to what I need to.
Correct.
Do. Very important when traveling. And it's not like I'm trying to be like, I don't want to eat African food. No, I was fine with that, but you have.
Oh yeah, no. You have to be careful.
The next day, and you can't.
That's right.
Risks. But they would have like Chinese food for breakfast. Like there was these buffets, and they would have like beans and coleslaw and Chinese food, and I was just like, what's going on? And my guide was saying like, oh yeah, a lot of guys in Africa, they basically will have a massive breakfast, which contains
and get
like
them through the whole day. 3,000 calories.
Basically. And then you don't eat again till that night. And it was just
right.
And for some reason, Chinese food is on the menu, and that's totally normal. It's just like,
okay.
Maybe that's not all of Kenya, but that my guide was like, oh yeah, it's totally normal. I'm like, okay.
All right.
Eggs and toast, please. Thank you.
So what was your support vehicle? Like, because I mean, for those that don't know, if anybody has ever been to a rally or anybody who's done everything off-road, support vehicles are the key to making these events work. They are the backbone. They are the transportation. They are the lifeblood of a rally, because let's face it, the vehicles in the rally are there for one purpose. They're there to race, and they get bent up, battered, and broken. So what did you travel around in?
So this is what most people traveled in. I brought up photos for those of you who are listening. It's a extended length Land Cruiser. So these are built in Kenya for support purposes and for safaris. They basically take a clapped out Land Cruiser from somewhere else in the world. They rebody it, re-engine it, and extend it by like 5 feet. And these things are awesome. They have massive leaf spring suspension in the back. I'm sure they don't handle very well at all, but they will go anywhere. That is not what I had. I had my driver bought a Toyota Corolla Fielder, which is a station wagon Corolla. And his reason for that, he's like, I have a Range Rover, but I was told that most of the rally things were going to be around these areas where I know that most of the roads are going to be paved.
Yeah.
And also the transits were so long. We had some like 8-hour transits. Transit is when you're going from one stage to another, but you're not actually in the middle of the race.
Yep.
He was like, this gets better economy. It's much faster because it has the bigger engine option in that vehicle. And he hauled ass. And when we actually got to stages and needed to drive halfway down a stage, he had no problem. He's like, yep, full throttle in. So
you got a picture of this thing? I want to see this.
Yeah.
You can't tell me you didn't take a picture of your own transport vehicle.
I shot video of it. And I actually did. Oh yeah, I'll bring up Instagram because I have a picture on Instagram of it. One second here.
So, and that's the whole thing, like support vehicles. And this has to do for anything that you have to do with media and or video. You don't have a good support vehicle, you finished. Your day is over. Your week is over.
If we had, and this is also something to keep in mind, like in Africa, here we go. This was our, wait, where did I put that monitor? Oh, come on. Give me.
But yeah, they are the lifeblood of when we do shoots, our support vehicles, we have to check them over 6 ways from Sunday, because if they're stranded, that means we're stranded. And that means a shoot just goes south. Right. So, but I would imagine in Kenya, this is what they're used to. So, it's got to be a whole different ballgame,
There we go. So,
wow. Okay.
That is my my Toyota Fielder. I sent a picture to the Toyota PR people. They thought it was awesome. That was in the morning before we were heading out on the stage. So it's a station wagon Toyota Corolla. And that's kind of the interesting thing. It's like, you damage a vehicle in the States, you're like, oh, well, I need to call, Discount Tire to get a tire replaced or something there.
Yeah.
You bust a tire there, you're going to a little hole in the wall asking for a sledgehammer, and you're sledgehammering out your own rim.
Right.
Because there is nobody who can help you outside of the major cities. And we were not in the major cities most of the time. And yes, we actually did dent 2 rims, and we did have to sledgehammer them. So that was actually a thing.
So does he carry spare parts? Like, did you have spare parts and extra tires?
No, he
or
had a
no?
full-size spare, but that was basically it. That was, so the full-size spare, because obviously we were going to get a flat at some point, and we ended up getting
Right.
four holes in one tire. And when we actually did it, so we had to like use that filler stuff, like that really toxic filler stuff. But hey, it got us back on the road, and there we went. So on we went.
Right.
But yeah, so and that's kind of the difficult thing is like, so you have these stages that are really, really long, and you have to establish where you're going to go. And so we basically would drive into the stage, and I would just drive until I got to a spot where I'm like, I think this is going to be something. Because you want a car to come in sideways, or you want to jump, or you want something that shows the landscape. And so I had like a checklist in my head of, I want to jump, I want a sideways slide, I want big, epic, expansive desert, I want like, an elephant. I did not get an elephant with a car, but I did get zebras with a car. So that's kind of a nice.
Okay, it's all right.
It's okay. It's fine. But so it was chasing the rally was its own adventure. And I know there's lots of other video producers, photographers who are super jealous that I was able to do it, but man, it was tiring. It was so tiring. It's kind of one of those, like, if I was 20, it would have been great. Not 20 anymore.
Yeah, you are not 20.
That said, I would do it again tomorrow. And I might bring bigger cameras with me next
time. Was it, I mean, aside from the lack of sleep and food, was it fun? Did you have, was it an enjoyable thing? And is it something that, as a producer and as a camera operator, you would tell people like you have to do something like this once for the experience?
No, but there are camels. So I did not know there would be camels in Kenya, but they were actually on stage once. The thing with this type of an event is, I think that you cannot go into it not having, you need to have had experience shooting these type of events. If you don't, you're not going to have a useful functioning experience, because you're basically going to be you're going to be in service all the time, which is basically where they fix the cars in between things. That's where everybody kind of hangs out, and you're just hanging out in a service park for the most part. It takes a lot of, I shot the US Rally Series for a decade. I've done WRC. I've done these type of events, not of this scale or in, remoteness before, but, I'm ready to do Dakar now. I want to do that.
Right.
Kind of like, I shot Isle of Man TT. I've shot this now. Now I feel kind of like I'm on a roll. I need to do all the great events of the world. And so, and I never felt that way before, but now I'm like, I've started. I'm halfway there, basically.
So let's talk about highlights. What were some of your highlights from the event?
Oh, well, seeing an elephant live is actually way more impressive. In the wild, like literally they can charge you, like literally your life is in danger when you're that close to very large animals. It doesn't matter that you're in a car. That's kind of thrilling. That's pretty cool. The helicopters doing the chase over the vehicles, that's pretty cool. That's when you're at one of these like big world famous events where you have guys who are really, doing things. It's impressive seeing the cars, the level of prep, the environments, people driving through this stuff, how they deal with it, the endurance of it, the locations. The locations were incredible. And this is kind of now a famous photo that I took. That is a highlight for me, to be able to nail a shot when I'm not even using a camera I would normally shoot this type of stuff with. And to be able to experience, that's history in the making, essentially. That is now a legendary image. Block has, with my permission, Block, tweeted it out. It basically, anything as a photographer, you want to be able to make a difference or an impact when you go cover an event. You don't want to come back, do a thing, nobody watches it, nobody cares. And it's not like an ego feeding thing. It's more of a
what's your job?
Yeah, it's my job. It's like, did I do my job well? If I did my job well, people will be talking about it. And I find it kind of funny. My mini doc isn't out yet, so nobody has any comments about that. But to have a photo kind of go viral while I was at the event, was really, I mean, that was seriously gratifying.
Well, good.
Me.
You need to send that to me because that's what I'm going to use as the lead off to this podcast.
Nope, you can't.
All right. Well, send me something good that I could use.
I'll send you something good, but that one's going to be the thumbnail for my doc thing. So I don't.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. So what else? So let me ask you this. So, all right, you've shot for 12 days. You've run all over Africa.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Avoiding food. What was it like just dealing with the general public? And because you posted pictures on Instagram of some wonderful, people out there. Yeah. How was it dealing with them? And did they have questions as to what you were doing and why you were doing it and things of that nature?
It was really interesting. So wherever we would go, like children appeared. It was weird. Like I would be in a spot where I'm like, I don't see any settlements. I don't see even a cow. I would start the camera down, start filming, boom, out of nowhere, 5 kids. I'm like, where'd you guys come from? Mm-hmm. And they were mostly like fascinated with like the fact, like my camera equipment. And my guide was very like, he's like, you need to be cautious. They're cute kids, but you need to be cautious. And that's something that I always kind of had to remind myself. Cause like in the States, you have to be careful with your equipment. But honestly, when you're out filming rally in the middle of nowhere, there's no place for anybody to go. They can take a camera and run, but you're going to catch them. I mean, it's not a big deal. Middle of Africa, it's a little bit harder. And you are dealing with some areas that are pretty, they're still getting water from a well down the street.
Right.
And that's not that uncommon. That's pretty common. So like to be able to like, I mean, they're great people. They're really nice. You just have to watch your stuff. And when you're out there filming, it's kind of tough to be like, oh, everybody's like really nice and they're polite, but at the same time, you're like,
don't take my shit.
All of your cameras and tripods and stuff. And it was really kind of interesting, just the different types of people, because like you have the villagers who love the rally, but they're also willing to like walk across the street in between cars or hang out on the road. And then you on the other extreme, you have like, I guess I want to say the people who are like German heritage, European heritage, who basically are out there to party. So you have different, on one hand, you have people who are out there cheering the cars on and they're like, yeah, like the villagers are like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. And then on the other hand, you have all the other people like getting drunk and, just getting rowdy and stuff. And maybe not even see the fact that a car just went by, it's like, the difference in audience was very, very dramatic in the way they responded to the actual event. It was a very unique experience. And I'm still kind of processing the whole thing because it was just so different. And like, I would start filming and like these kids would start like crowding in on me. Like they would like be like touching me to like, look over. They wanted to like, look what was on my monitor. So they're like crawling over my shoulder.
Of course.
So I'm like, okay, guys, COVID rules here. Give me 6 feet.
Right.
That was a challenge. So,
so did you have a favorite, what was your favorite vehicle from ride? Did you have one or all of them were impressive?
There was this Nissan. Well, all the old Porsches were great, and all the Porsches basically looked the same because they were all prepped by the same company.
Right.
I got some wildlife. Let me show you some wildlife here. So like.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a great shot. Yeah. For those out there that are listening, you really should tune in to the podcast because Ryan is posting some fantastic photos. You could just go to the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ on YouTube and see these. But some beautiful shots, Ryan. Wow.
Thank you. Because my main thing was to shoot. The Skoda team wanted photos, so I shot photos of the Skoda. But then in between it, I'm for video. I wanted to get like the top guys, obviously. There were a few other cars that I kind of liked. So I got them, but for the most part, I'm still out there for 3 hours in the middle of nowhere, and I can't leave the stage. So I'm shooting photos. But I want to show you a photo of a Nissan. Where is that? That was on this day. So it was on the last day. It's one of my favorite photos, I think.
Did you have to watch out for ground critters? Like, fine, you see an elephant coming or zebra, or whatever the case is, but like scorpions or spiders or snakes or things like that?
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I do now whenever I go film anywhere in the world is if I have like even in the South, you need to be like, okay, what
Oh
do I
yeah,
look out for here? Because locals won't even think about it. They'll be like, oh,
that's right.
the
Of course,
red
he got bit
snakes
by
are
a
fine, the
cobra.
green snakes are not. Yeah. And
Right.
so the biggest thing that like my guide was mostly worried about was not lions, like panthers and stuff.
Oh wow.
Because there were some areas where because we were literally inside. Now it's funny. So a lot of these places we were filming were inside these national parks, like where the
Okay.
elephants live, and it's a wildlife menagerie. And normally, you're not allowed to even take one step out of your vehicle
Huh.
at these locations. You stay in the vehicle, and you won't die. And so I'm out there filming. Well, I can't stay inside the
Huh.
vehicle. I get outside my vehicle, and my guide is like, "You don't go 10
Yeah.
feet away from me." And I'm
Right.
like, I'm going over here for a shot. So he started like creeping behind me with the
Right.
Toyota as I'm
Yep.
like carrying tripod sticks, because
Yep.
you do have you could be somebody's lunch. Now there are rules, you know, lions don't typically or whatever they had there. I forget now exactly. I think they had lions. They're not going to feed middle of the day unless they're
Sure.
sick
Of course.
and starving. They have. Siri just thought I was asking her something. Um, they're not going to feed middle of the day. They have very specific times that they do that. So, you know, for
Right.
the most part, you're kind of okay. But ants, so you have there's these
Right. Sure.
ants. There's some really nasty ants there. Did not
Okay.
run into any of them. I don't even know where I have a photo of those. But
So
yeah,
basically, what you're
you gotta watch
saying
out
is
for
there's a
that.
lot of stuff out there that could kill you if you're not careful.
Yeah, but unlike other parts of the world, like in the American South, you really have to be careful of rattlesnakes and
Sure.
spiders and all that stuff. There really wasn't a big list of small guys you had to worry out for. Like in the
Okay.
Northeast, you want to look out for ticks. I hate ticks. Ticks are the worst because they're so
Right.
small.
Yeah.
This one, you're like, oh, there's a lion. Okay, I'm going over here now.
Right. 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 Right.
Although
Right.
you usually don't see a lion if he's actually stalking you until you're dead. So, you know, there's that.
Right.
At least.
So how long was so you had all the competitors, 41 cars, I believe you said, or something along those lines.
Mhm.
You know, was it a great thing for the competitors? Did you have a chance to talk to them and get their kind of feedback on the event?
I did, yeah. Like, I spoke to Ken Block a bunch about like his experience, and there were some of the questions. Like, a lot of it is like Kenya. It's kind of like a local event in a way, in that the
Yeah.
local rules are a little. You can read the rule book, but it seems like the rules are kind of somewhat made up on the fly. So, like, yeah, you know, they're like, so Ken, for example, had a penalty, and he felt like that penalty was not really in accordance
Yeah.
with what the actual written rules were. And there was a bunch of that. And that, I think that was the biggest complaint from a lot of like the people who came in
Sure.
who had never done this rally before. They're like, "Meh." Yet, you know,
Yeah.
the obviously the locals who have done this event know all the rules and they do well. So yeah, I mean, you do end up with the leaderboard, like a lot of locals win this event.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like,
Gotcha.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, they're good drivers and they deserve to win, but you're kind of like, oh, okay, sure, you know, whatever.
Right.
But it's more the experience. And I think I talked to Phil Kaduri after the event too, and we were both on the same flight back to the States, and he seemed to really enjoy the event, and I think he would do it again too. And I think that's kind of the main thing is like, I talked to them while they were in the middle of it. They were exhausted, they were hot,
Yeah.
they were having a great time, but there's a lot of things that people, when they do it their first time, they might do different the second time.
Oh, sure. Of course.
The guy who brought me out said, I am not doing this event again unless I can get a car with air conditioning, because why do you need to be miserable on an event you're really not going to win anyway?
Right.
Because the top cars are prepped, and the guys who there are locals. They know the roads,
Right.
and nobody's going to just fly in from the UK and win this, you know.
Right.
Although I can't believe how close Sandell got. Sandell, first time ever there, first time ever driving this 911 in competition, and he came in like second. He is so
I mean, there are some people that are just, I mean, they just have skill. And it's always interesting. Like, you know, I've been track driving for a long time, and I'm always enamored by somebody that, you know, you go out there and you're like, oh, I'm kind of fast. And then you realize how slow and inept you really are when you see a professional who literally does this on a daily basis and makes their living at it. And you go, oh, that's what a good driver looks like. And I'm not him.
Yeah.
You know,
and to underscore that point. So Ken on that one spot where I did the photo of Ken taking a massive jump, the 3 guys who won the event, basically the top 3, none of them jumped there. All of them went around it.
Right.
Sandell and Chogger and I think Ian.
That's just experience.
Ian also did. Yeah, because they knew that that's the faster way around it. But Ken, Ken's not going to win at this point. He doesn't care. He's just having fun. It's the second day, the last day. He wants media. I mean, Ken wins when media talks about him, and
that's right.
He wins when he can win, and he makes media when he can make media. And I love that, actually. That's great. It makes it fun to shoot an event. And actually, that was really fun because I was scoping out that area for the big jump, and like another set of photographers came through and they're like, oh, nothing's going to happen here. And they kept going. And I'm like,
yeah, it looks pretty good.
Ken's going to send it there. I mean, like, so one of the Porsches, not Ken, came through and jumped really long. And the locals who were there were like, whoa, that's insane. Nobody's going to jump that high. I'm like, Ken's going to beat him.
Right.
And he did. Ken was like 10 feet longer. It was
right.
Insane. And everybody asked me when he landed, was it a hard landing? And like, no, it was super soft. Ken is so good at jumps. Some drivers are, but and that was actually really fun, is seeing, because after you're doing this for 10 days, you start to get to understand the technique that the drivers have. You start to recognize cars and how they're going to slide. And it's really kind of fun to just see. You can almost see who's going to win a stage by how they handle one corner in many cases. Right. There's this one shot that's going to be in the dock. I don't have it available to play right now. Sorry. Where Chogger is full throttle through this preserve. It's actually where that zebra shot was taken earlier. Full throttle, and the road is kind of crowned on the sides, and I don't think he quite anticipated that, and he goes a little wide and he's sideways on this thing, and there's like a log in front of him, and he straightens out and just full throttle through the log, and the log just wow, he's just like full throttle. It is what it is. And stop, and you're like, wow, that guy's winning. Like that's And he was so fast through there. It was like not even close with anybody else. And he did end up winning the entire event. So yeah, it was a whole bunch of ain't care from
it sounds like you had a spectacular time. It sounds like you had, it sounds like you were exhausted.
Yes.
But let me ask you this. We're actually coming up on an hour, which is crazy. When is your doc coming out?
Probably within a month. The problem with this is that it's like a whole bunch of rally events. Like either I can whip an edit out immediately, or I take a while. And this one's definitely going to take a while because I have 9 days of footage to parse through.
That's a lot.
Interviews, and plus, so much. So it's just going to take a while. So it'll be out next month probably.
Okay. And then what is now that you're home, right? Because how long was the flight?
Home. I leave tomorrow to go drive a Acura MDX at Sonoma.
Of course you do. Oh, well, call me. Maybe I'll meet you for lunch or something like that.
That would be great.
Because I actually live right in the area. So
yeah, I know.
But what is the, how long was the flight?
The flight was 20 hours in the air. One of the criteria that I had, though, for going for this team, they didn't pay a lot, but they were willing to send me business class. So,
you don't take a flight here's the thing.
You're non-functional if you take a 20-hour
flight. And that's what people need to understand. Like I've gone, overseas many times, and it's one of those things where if you're doing it for work, because a lot of people, you first class, that's ridiculous. It's not when you have a job to do. If you're going for a standard vacation or something like that, and you're in a coach seat and you have to get there and immediately work, you don't rest. You do not sleep. You don't do anything. Whereby if you can go on a first class or a business class seat, you can actually rest, which means you're rested when you get there, which means you can function and do your job properly. So I don't want anybody to, I don't want people to think like, oh my God, his first class is diva. That's not the case.
This was like 4 hours after I landed. It's like,
wow.
I was literally out there photographing the team while they were doing testing, the moment I landed. And so I had to be functional, essentially. Right. And you can't be functional. I've done that international trip before. Like I've gone to Barcelona and stuff and coach. Yep. It's okay. You can kind of do it, but oh man, it is so hard to get into the groove once you actually land.
Yeah. It's difficult.
For those who don't go in business class ever, the nice thing is that you have your own pod in some cases, and you can lay flat, so you can actually get some sleep. And it's not great sleep, but it's at least this. It's more.
It's something.
It is something.
It's something. Yeah, I know. Like if I have to do a trip like that overseas, and I'm a big dude. Like I'm 6'4", 240.
Oh, yeah, I can't even imagine you in the back.
Yeah, like I don't fit in a standard coach seat anyway. So any type of long, like overseas trip, it's like honestly, like if I can't have, and again, it has nothing to do with being a diva or any bullshit like that. I physically just don't fit in a seat. So like if I can't go business, I just don't go.
Yeah,
it's just.
And it's
just don't go.
And also we're not 20 anymore. It's like,
well, that's the other thing.
We're not doing this to prove anything. We're just doing our jobs at this point.
Exactly. Well, Ryan, this has been, I was so curious, man. I was so excited to have you back on because it sounded like such an amazing experience. And the photos that you were shooting were absolutely fantastic. And, because of that, where could everybody, we know Driving Sports TV on YouTube, but where could everybody see Instagram and everything else?
Yeah, Driving Sports TV on Instagram. That's like, it's just Driving Sports TV all spelled out, squished together. That I basically kept a log of where I was and what I was doing each day on Instagram. I did two to three posts a day. So that's kind of the most extensive time arc. You could say. I also posted a couple videos of like hanging out with zebras and stuff like that. Then the rest of it, of course, go to Driving Sports on YouTube, and they can subscribe, and they'll be notified when the video comes out.
Awesome, dude. Well, dude, thank you once again. Obviously, always coming back. It's always fun to BS and have a little fun. So, all right, next adventure, you're going out and you're driving an Acura MDX at Sonoma, which is a far cry from slinging around in the dirt with doing rally cars.
NSX Type S, which we're on the track. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I mean, nobody will watch it. I don't do particularly well with sports car reviews on my channel, but I mean, in terms of viewership, like my viewers come to see the off-road stuff, and that's cool.
Off-road stuff.
But it doesn't mean I'm not going to drive an NSX Type S when I get an
opportunity. Why wouldn't you? Why would you turn that down?
I know. Right now, we actually have the Lexus LX 600 that I need to film when I get back in. So like the moment I land back from Sonoma, I'm out at our test facility filming that off-road. So, and the LX 600, for those who don't know, is the International Land Cruiser in a Lexus suit, basically.
Very, very nice. Well, As always, Ryan, thank you for coming back on the Hot Rod BBQ. And for our listeners out there, if you want to buy or sell a car, go to the Hemmings Classifieds. We've got 25,000, 30,000 cars. Also, our auctions out there. If you want to buy a car, sell a car via auction, we have a kick-ass auction site. I know because I sold 3 cars on it, and I've always done very well. So that's it for this episode of the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. Go check out Ryan Douthit on Driving Sports TV. And that's it. We'll see everybody soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.